Well guys, it's finally that time of year again where I can talk about my least favorite films of the year, and this is a lot of fun. I love making these videos, and there's going to be films here that you guys are going to disagree with, and others where you're like, why isn't that there, and why is that there, and why is this above this one, and why is this and that, and I liked that movie, and you're too hard on that one, Chris. And that's fine. I mean, everyone has different opinions, so I'd like to know what are some of your guys' worst picks. Make a video response, comment below, and let me know how you feel about it. But let's get started. Right off the bat, I have a few of what I like to call dishonorable mentions. Films that didn't quite make the list, but still, you just kind of want to have them there, but they're not quite there because there were 10 others that were worse than these films. My first dishonorable mention is Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2. I don't really understand why people thought this movie was in any way better than the others. There's like a 15-minute fight scene in it that was cool, but it was a complete bait and switch. It didn't add anything to the story. It was just kind of there to show some heads being ripped off. Everything else about the movie was exactly like the others. My second dishonorable mention is Chernobyl Diaries. Wow, what a horrible horror film. Complete found footage garbage. Just, it went nowhere, the performances were awful, and it had nothing to offer. And my third and final dishonorable mention is The Lucky One with Zac Efron, the movie in which he walks across the entire United States with a dog in the same pair of clothes and doesn't have a scratch on him or any sweat or dirt or anything. Seriously, just, really? Now let's get down and dirty. Starting my list off with number 10 is a terrible, terrible crime thriller that I don't even understand how this came about. Alex Cross. This movie is directed by Rob Cohen, and it shows. Oh my word, what a terrible director. This has some of the worst shaky cam I have ever seen, and possibly the worst fight scene I've ever seen in my life. You can't tell what's going on. The whole movie is incomprehensible. It has two actors who are actually trying really hard to give good performances, Tyler Perry and Matthew Fox. And I can't really blame them in particular for how bad this movie came out. The direction and the script are so awful, and these actors and the direction and everything clashes to make this just an absolute hilariously bad movie, because these actors are trying so hard to give performances, but because of how bad the movie is turning out, it just becomes laughable. At number 9, I have a movie that when I first saw it, I was like, this is gonna be like the worst movie of the year for a long time, but I actually saw 8 films I liked even less since then. This Means War. It's directed by Mick G, and this is a movie that just was maddening to watch. Each character in this movie is so horrifically dumb that you don't understand why any of them are being the way they are. It's the kind of movie that people go to and they're like, yeah, that was a pretty entertaining movie. And then like 2 months later, you're like, so remember that movie This Means War? And like, what movie? Oh yeah, that movie. It was a movie. But when I saw it, I just could not stand how stupid and idiotic each character in this movie was, and how poorly done the film was. It just all looked so fake, and everything was just glossed over with this Hollywood sheen of idiocy. At number 8, we have a movie that some people said I was too unfair with. It was a movie that was supposed to be stupid, and you're just supposed to have fun with it. And I get if you like these movies. I don't. Underworld Awakening. I actually enjoyed the first Underworld film. I went back and watched that movie after having seen this one, even though I couldn't stand this movie, and it was actually not bad. It had a sense of realism to it, and it was fun, and it had some good action sequences directed by Len Wiseman. But this movie was just a giant video game movie. Literally almost every time a character would go into a room of some kind, the electricity would be malfunctioning, in which each scene, like the lights were flashing on and off, and you're like, you know, that doesn't improve your movie, pal. Why are you doing that? It's just one of those things where you're watching it, you maybe don't think about it, but as soon as you notice it, you cannot stop noticing that every time they're in a scene where there's electric lights, the electric lights flash on and off, and that's just a little nitpick. It's just such a stupid movie where the script is just tied together. Some guy was like, here's the script for Underworld, just go make it, because they all make the exact same amount of money back and make their budget back. At number 7, we have one of the dumbest titles of the year, The House at the End of the Street. Seriously, who named the movie that? I want to know. And why is Jennifer Lawrence in this movie? Why is such a talented actress in this movie at all? Another movie that is just dumb. I mean, are you seeing a trend here? And when I say that, I don't mean like, oh, this movie was dumb. I mean, it is really dumb. Like, the scripts for these movies are so bad. It has weird twists in it. Characters that they're just there. They're just there to be the girl in the horror movie or the guy in the horror movie, and it's not scary, and that's the biggest problem with this movie. When you make a horror movie and it's not scary, you've basically failed at everything you're trying to do. At number 6, we have another film that kind of reminds me of the Underworld thing. It's a film that comes off very video game-esque. This one's actually based off of a video game, and it's a film that a lot of people were like, it's dumb, but whatever. I'm sorry. I cannot forgive Silent Hill Revelation for being freaking awful. Besides the fact that there really is no thrills to this movie, no suspense, no real scares. It has such an idiotic screenplay where nothing ties together, nothing in this movie actually makes sense, and you're like, what? What? Like, why are certain things happening? Why are these characters doing this right now? What's Carrie-Anne Moss doing in this movie with all this white makeup? Why in the world is Malcolm McDowell in this movie only to be in there for like 2 seconds, then he turns into a giant beast? It's like, every single thing in this movie just comes off so horrible. The performances were terrible, the scares were predictable, it was gross in a bad way. It wasn't like, ooh, that was creepy, it was just disgusting. I played the first Silent Hill game and it scared the crap out of me, and it was legitimately scary. This movie and even the one before it, no, just an unnecessary sequel in every way. It actually was a sequel, it wasn't a retelling, and because it was a sequel, and because it tried to tie into the first film, so many things in this movie made absolutely no sense. At number 5, we have a film that you probably forgot I even reviewed because no one saw this movie, and it's a movie that I understand why some people semi-enjoyed it, but for the most part this movie got mediocre reviews, but for some reason this movie hit me on the exactly wrong day, on the wrong level, and I just could not stand Sparkle. I know it's weird for me to hate on this movie because unfortunately Whitney Houston passed away. I said in my review that she was the best part of the movie, and I wasn't just saying that because of the fact that she had passed away. I meant it. She was the best part in that movie, and the only thing I actually enjoyed. I found this to be a melodramatic Lifetime movie that had like Oprah Winfrey's signature all over it. I guess that's the best way I can describe this movie. Everything about this movie felt so cliched. The singers who just got famous, so what are they gonna do? Cocaine, of course, because everybody who becomes a famous singer eventually does cocaine in the movies. That's just how it is. Domestic abuse that was portrayed so poorly in this film that audience members in my theater were laughing because they thought it was supposed to be comical. Couldn't stand this movie. Had one good scene in it with Whitney Houston singing a song, that was it. At number 4, we have the third and final film on my list that I group into a category. Underworld, Silent Hill Revelation, and now Resident Evil Retribution. It's a sequel to this video game-esque thing, and it has to have a subtitle of some kind. Revelation, Retribution, Reloaded, Revolutions. How many of these titles are we gonna get? Paul W.S. Anderson is one of my least favorite directors working today. Not because he's like an offensive man or anything, but because all of his movies are supremely idiotic in the worst possible ways. And you can just tell this movie is a 100% cash grab and nothing else, because as I broke down in my original review, these movies all make back their budget, and more so. And they just keep making them because it is a money-generating franchise for Hollywood. I'm a huge fan of the Resident Evil games, and I would love to see a legitimate Resident Evil movie that actually pays homage to the games in a good way. This is not that movie. Now we're starting to get serious here. Number 3, The Apparition. Oh my God, what a horrible movie that was. Crap, that movie was a piece of garbage. If you saw my original review, you saw that I broke down the fact that this movie is just a giant marketing ploy and lie. The entire ending of the film was spoiled in the trailer, and the entire marketing ploy of the movie that you have to believe in the ghost for it to attack you, but as long as you don't believe in it, it won't attack you. Yeah, that's not in the movie. It's It's not in the movie at all. It has nothing to do with the film. The entire marketing of this movie was based on a lie to take your money from you. Basically, the whole movie is a girl in her underwear wandering through hallways, reacting to noises, and there's nothing there. And it is the most unscary horror film of the year. Horrible in every single way. Now at number 2, we have possibly my most controversial pick, I suppose, because this is once again a movie, just like Sparkle, that got mediocre reviews. It didn't get good reviews, but even the bad reviews were like, whatever, it's there. But for some reason, this movie just touched me on the wrong nerve. I could not stand The Three Stooges. No one really liked this movie per se, but a lot of people were like, it's not that bad. I don't understand why you hate it so much. I'll tell you why. To me, even though this movie may be more well made than some of the other films on this list, it was just so frickin' annoying. To me, this movie was like having 3 of Jar Jar Binks in one movie. Just reacting and wandering around the city and, ooh, Misa like that. Ooh, Misa like Sofia Vergara. Misa want to touch that butt. Ooh. Seriously. I couldn't stand this movie. It annoyed me, and that's why it's my number 2. Okay guys, looking back on 2012, there was no competition. Absolutely no competition. My number 1 pick, worst movie of the year, the movie that I couldn't stand watching. I wanted to just not watch it anymore so many times throughout this movie. Piranha 3 Double D. Just the worst freaking piece of absolute dog shit on the planet. Like, it's just so bad. Everything in this movie, it's just like, what? When your movie has a scene in which a piranha swims up a woman's vagina and decides to take a nap there, and then later, while she is having sex with her boyfriend, decides, you know what, I'm just gonna wake up now and bite off this guy's penis. Your movie's horrible if it has that. And you can argue that this movie is trying to be so bad that it's good, and that's exactly what it's doing, but it doesn't understand what that is. This movie has moments where it's trying to be legitimately scary, where it's trying to be legitimately sexy in some way, where it's trying to be gross. And the only thing this movie does successfully is piss everyone off. It's a movie that doesn't understand what it is, and it is so bad at doing what it's trying to do. The only positive thing about this piece of garbage is the fact that they released it on iTunes the same day it was released in theaters, so I could rent it and I didn't have to leave my home. I was so tempted to turn off that computer so many times, and I didn't. I watched it. I mean, for goodness sakes, David Hasselhoff running in slow motion with the Baywatch thing going on? He did that in 2004 in the SpongeBob movie. It was old. 8 years ago. It was old before the SpongeBob movie came out. It's not funny anymore, dude. It's not funny at all. Piranha 3 Double D, you are the worst piece of crap released in 2012. Congratulations, guys. Sorry, I got a little bit of a temper, you know, these movies. Well, guys, all in all, I actually enjoyed the year of 2012 in film. There was a lot of really good gems. These ones I mentioned, not so much. If you disagree, I understand, because you're going to, because this is my chance to just be completely biased and offer my own opinion. Nevertheless, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Let me know, what are your picks? And as always, if you like this video, then you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.